whatever it takes you to make your customers happy. That's all. There are a lot of examples. I mean, one more example I want to quote is one of our truck driver. He was actually delivering the goods to the people, and then suddenly he saw a fire accident in UK. And then he has two options. One is to stop the truck and then go and then get the fire, or otherwise deliver the thing. So what it came to his mind is give our best to the customers. So he stopped the truck. He said that he called the wherever customers where he has to deliver. I think for customers he called them saying that I have to stuck up because of a fire accident. Let me solve this, and then people were very happy. So so these are the few examples that I can pick from Tesco.
Okay, we'll get into a few questions and then we'll. Okay, a couple of points I want to make. Couple of assumptions what you people are making in the argument. I want to ask that as a question to you. If I remove that assumption, will you be able to justify your points? One is you are assuming common sense and best practice are two different things. Many times, industry best practice is a structured common sense. Okay, like I did. Okay, there's nothing innovative somebody has come up with in that and all those things. Second thing is you're assuming best practice is a documented rigid process, like you said that form filling in. That's not a best practice for me. None of the industry will say that's a best practice. That's a wrong practice that the organization is following. Okay, so if you remove those things, some of your arguments will not hold good here. The second thing I wanted to ask you a question is that will medicines cure diseases? You agree or not? I can say no. You have to eat it. You have to eat it on time. Because some of your arguments were like that. Ideal best practice will not help you, but you have to adopt it for your organization. So yes, we are assuming that by adopting, will it help organization to move forward? Now, will it move forward or not?
See again, I'll take the same example. It will only help you survive, not move forward.
Question is will industry best practice help organization move forward? It's not saying that it will help the organization move forward, but will it be one of the catalysts to move organization forward?
Yeah. Now, if you look at it, move forward is a very vague, words. If you ask me, what is the definition of moving forward?
From the current state, you move to the next state.
So that if that is the case, definitely, you move forward. But how is it going to help? See, the whole idea of the selling point of best practices, you will be better than others.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. To reach others' level is also moving forward. Maybe I am behind all my competition. To reach their level is also moving forward.
Yeah, so what I want to say is, basically there are, as you pointed out, there are two aspects to it. One, you are lagging behind and you want to catch up. Second, you want to beat others or you want to move ahead of others, right? What are we achieving by catching up others?
I'll be able to compete.
No. My debate on that is, by catching up with others, we're not competing because others are going ahead of us now.
First I need to catch up, then I move forward.
Yeah, so you're all the time behind the best practice trying to catch up, where the other guy is moving way too forward ahead of you. So for you to catch up with that guy, you better come out of the best practice and try to catch up with him where he is. Let's take an example of Google. Google always gets into a market which is not existing. They create market. Right? We talk about search engine, let's talk about Facebook. They all create their market. This market never existed. Right? They are ahead of best practice. This is what is taking their organization to a whole different new level. You are trying to use the best practice. Okay, Facebook has been found. You try to come up with similar, let's say Orkut or let's say MySpace. Where are you? People are not using that anymore because these people are way ahead of you. You want to survive in the industry. You want to survive in this market. You better move ahead of people. I would look for something which would help me move forward than others, rather than all the time trying to catch up with somebody who is trying to move forward. So you're always at the second place. Someone is moving forward all the time at the first place. You're always at the second place because you're only relying on the best practices. So my argument here is, if you want to move forward, think beyond best practice. Best practice will not help you to move forward. Thanks.
Okay, and I have one more question for Ravindra. Okay, one of the good point what you said is that in the stage 1 and stage 2, best practice help organization to move to the benchmarking level, and then innovation moves forward. It's an excellent point. But there are, I know at least 2 organizations where I worked on. It was started with some innovative technical entrepreneurs. They went to some level, they had enough customers, and then they started creating real ripples in the market with their innovative products and services. At that point of time, they realized they are not able to compete with some of the global companies because they don't have the basic sanitation in place, very basic things of that is where they started adopting good practices to move forward. So, do you agree to that?
See, I think my view is suppose when I say breaking through from best practices, what I mean is so even if you look at the innovation thing, we need to look at whether it is acceptable to the stakeholders. Or the customers will okay. Yes.
No, my question is different. They moved to a certain extent using innovation. They didn't look at best practices. They didn't adopt any standard, not even compliance requirements. Certain point of time, they found out that the scalability is getting affected because they don't have the compliance in place, they don't have the standards in place, they don't have the auditing standards in place. That's where they've adopted the best practices to move forward.
Agree. So what I said earlier was, I think my purpose is very clear. So I said that an organization has to move from startup stabilization and then the innovation. Suppose somebody starts up today and then without having the, let's say, standard processes, they try to do innovation. Probably they want to fail. That is my personal view.
They didn't fail. What I'm saying, they reached a stagnant state because of that.
Okay.
So now they are using best practices to bring in scalability and global. So aren't they moving forward?
Okay. So what I could sense is they would have missed the second point there when they are trying to move from first to third one. So as I said, there are multiple reasons why they failed with their innovation or whatever. So one reason straight away could be the stabilization process was not very strong. So it's not a sustainable business for them. Second reason could be the products, whatever they are trying to develop or the process they are trying to develop are not acceptable to stakeholders. That also could be a reason. So probably they choose to fix the other one where there is no stabilization. Okay. You have some other thoughts?
No, it's nothing to do with the product or service.
Okay, so product is...
It's all acceptable to the people, but they started getting roadblocks because they don't have information security, they don't have compliance, they don't have basic quality management system.
That's what I said, the stabilization part. Right?
So that's what I said. So now in this case, organizations moving forward using best practice, isn't it?
Yes, but however, when they try to go from 1 to 3, they miss the second step. So obviously it has to come.
So that is best practice, right?
Agree, but
so best practice is helping organizations to move forward.
So I will not say moving forward. So whatever the move forward they did,
2 to 3 is moving forward.
I'm saying they moved very fast, which is not required. They moved very fast. It's time for them to take a step back and then see whether they're doing the right thing or not. So that's what they did in my view. It's not necessarily from there. Let's say if you want to move, probably if you just concentrate only on the stabilization, I'm sure they will not be in the market because market is so ever changing every day, new technology, new products or whatever.
It's not about stabilization.
Okay.
It is the basic hygiene of the
organization. When it's a stabilization, it talks about the process and...
No, without that, they will not move. So some of the organizations will not look at your proposals if you don't have some of the things.
I think probably the current industry is such with it, but I think if you look at 10 years back or 15 years back, very less companies in India got the same certification. So now
I talk about CMI.
I'm just giving an example. So when you said that there are not many processes, so I'll not have the certification, but some companies would have moved so fast, they tried to ignore the basics. So that's where probably the problem came. That's what my view.
I think interesting discussions. And even by the topic by its nature, will actually prompt these kind of discussions. If you look at best practice, and I don't know why you guys started assuming that innovation is not triggered from best practices, which is not the case. If you look at industry-wide, people would get together. Maybe if I take the actual example where you collect the practices across, choose. There are good practices. You choose them, and then it becomes a best practice. And then best practice again will become good practice. So it's actually a cycle. That is how it goes through. And then you can choose from that and decide how to actually adapt it to your organization. Sometimes I see some mix-up of examples. Probably I was thinking, what is this? For example, talking about Google going and capture video market share. It is nothing against the best practice. The best practice will say that we should go and acquire market. We should actually grow our profits. We should grow our share stakeholder satisfaction. But all these things will be part of the best practices. So you cannot actually make a comparison to say that Google is doing a great job because you violated the best practice. No. It is probably thinking of innovating, but it is still building on the best practice. Best practice would say that the company should actually give satisfaction to its users. Google is doing it. Best practice will say a company should take care of the stakeholders. They put money into the company and there should be returns.
So these kind of things are the best practices. And then how the company moves ahead is about innovation. So you should actually mix up that to say that best practice will put a seal on innovation. So that way coexist and best practice helps the company to move forward. It's a basic ingredient if you want to build your houses. Foundation, foundation is some best practices there which everybody will adopt. But how the house will come like a villa, it will come into an apartment, that is something different. So it's still guided by the best practice. Probably if you don't have a proper foundation, then you can, whatever innovation you do later on may not be things.
I agree.
Any other questions? I have one question. I mean, there was a, say for example, there are some established practices in the industry. If the industry doesn't have the established practices, how will people be able to communicate with each other? What would be the medium of language they would use to interact and come up with the design or to document things? If there is no commonality across the industry, the innovations cannot happen and things will not move on. For example, if the IT companies that time, before the .com, there was a boom and then there was a burst. So commercial parts apart, the technical parameter of TCP/IP, the reason why we are seeing a great world today in terms of the revolution in technology is because we have World Wide Web, which was possible only when everyone agreed on a common set of protocol to work on technologically, TCP/IP. If there were different players adopting different practices or different standards for their networks, then we wouldn't have seen the world what we are seeing today. Not that TCP/IP is the best form of protocol. There may be arguments against whether TCP/IP is best, but since it is common across, it is helping to establish a base and come up with the innovative solutions. How will you counter-argue on that point? There has to be common base, which is a common industry accepted best practice.
We are already living in the world of maturity. Most of the organization there, even though they do not follow or they are not certified, they are aware about the terms that we are using. I am not a technical guy. I don't know there is a server exists. I know there is a router exists. I know there is a TCP/IP configuration that has to be done. There are some of the basic knowledge we all have developed already. There is already a certain level of maturity. I'm not denying the fact that the common language will not help. All I'm trying to say is the basic common language is already existing. There is nothing different, nothing to a very substantial change that the best practices is bringing in here. For example, let's talk about any graduation degree. It's a certification. We all know B is a Bachelor of Engineering, we all know BSc is a Bachelor of Science, MSc is a Master of Science. So there is a common language already existing because of the maturity of this generation, because of the maturity of the industry. So I agree to your point, but I do not agree to a point that it is going to make a very huge substantial change. That's my argument.
So probably I'll try to differentiate between innovation and invention. In my view, innovation is the practical use of the invention. We have a product and how do you use that for the practical purposes in day-to-day. So while I do agree with the point that TCP/IP is a standard which all the internet service providers is using. But while that is a best practice, but in order for a company to move forward, being a growth economy, part of the growth economy, so how they would use the internet to build their business? I think that's where, suppose if I say Amazon would use TCP/IP, maybe another company, another online company called India Plaza, but they would use TCP/IP. But how they are able to build their products using that particular invention, that is what which I said. I always stand on first two phases. Best practices are must; they should be there. But I think when we're trying to move ahead the growth path of the value chain, that's where we need to bring that innovation, using that invention. So that's where I would.